Hey class, I want to show you how you can get started on your first capstone assignment for Unit 1 in the Mat 125 class. So on the left you see I've got this Word document, and it is the one that you can download. In a previous video I showed you how you could go about organizing this information, and the idea is that you would generally want to figure out your content before your HTML, and so everything should be based around the content. And this was one of the ways that you might be more accustomed to thinking. If this web stuff is new to you, you might be accustomed to thinking in traditional written outlines whenever you need to like write a paper or something like that, right? If you're going to organize content for something, it's kind of nice to just start writing some stuff down, and then we organized it based on sections and then actual thinking about the actual HTML tags that we'd use and stuff like that, right? And so this is what we ended up with. And it ended up being something that we can use as a guide to get started, right? And so you can also just go ahead and use this downloaded version if you did download my version of the file, and go ahead and go into CodePen or whatever editor you happen to be using. So if you are using CodePen, then we can start with this. All right. Now, whenever you go into CodePen, you can just go ahead and jump here to your dashboard if it's not already loaded. And I have collections here, and mine is like in a mobile view layout right now because I made it smaller. Yours might look like this. Okay, so mine just started to collapse so that the left-hand sidebar is now at the top for navigating to different sections of the dashboard. But so right now I've got two collections going. I've got my 125 pen assignment starters, and I also have practice lessons. I'm going to go ahead and create something that is a new collection after I create a new pen, and that new collection is going to be for our capstone assignments for the units, or you could call them unit assignments, for instance, so that you can see that they're different than the pen exercises, for instance. Okay, so I'm going to go up here and say create, and I'll just do new pen. And I'm not going to use JavaScript, so I'll go ahead and collapse that. And right now I'm not using CSS, I'll collapse that. And that gives me a little bit of room up here to kind of see what's going on, and then some room down below to see how it's going to display in the browser. So the first thing that's kind of nice about looking at what we've got on the left is that we have everything already kind of outlined, right? You can just look at these first things on the left, like 1, 2, and then 3, and you can see that those are the major sections within the body. And if you remember back to what I said before, what you're doing right here in this code pen, like in this area, right? This is all going to be within the body tags of your HTML, right? Remember, so if you were to download this file, it would go ahead and it would generate the doc type and the head tag and all those things that you don't have to type right now. So just remember that everything that you're typing is within the body, and also remember that this outline that we're looking at on the left, this is just the content outline that would go within the body. All right. All right, so to get started, let's look at this first, it's not a bullet point, it's first number, right? So it says that we're going to have a header. That's going to be a major section. So let's go ahead and we'll start with our header tag. All right, so this is kind of how you could get started. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put the ending tag right here so that I am opening and closing things as I type them. And I think that that's a best practice. That's generally what I do. If that's not something that you're accustomed to doing so far, I think that you should get in the habit of doing that, because it's really easy to forget to type the ending tag on something. All right, so we have a header, and one of the things you'll notice out here in the right in gray, it says ID equals intro. Well, remember we sort of said this isn't going to be content, like you're not going to see it in the body that displays on the page, all right? But this could be really helpful. Remember, this is going to be the top of the page, right? And so at some point after all this long stuff, right? At the very bottom, you'll notice in the footer, if you can remember, we also put an anchor link that will jump to the top of the page. And you'll see here in parentheses that it says intro, right? So that means that if you give this top header up here an ID of intro, it'll have a place for that link to jump to when you want to go back to the top of the page. So the way that you could look at this is you would go inside of the header tag, and right after the word header, inside the angle brackets, you'd put a space, and you would add the attribute of ID, okay? And then and you're going to say equals, and then you have to put double quotes, and it will type the opening and closing quotation marks and put the cursor right in the center. And I'm going to go ahead and type the word intro, and I'm going to leave it all in lowercase, and I'm going to go ahead and telling me that I haven't saved these. So I'm going to give this a title before I go any further. Let's hit the edit button, and I'm going to call this Unit 1, capstone. I can't type right now. Okay. And I'll do it, I'll do with a colon, and I'll say HTML personal page. Okay. All right. Now if I hit save, I can do Command S on a Mac, or on Windows you can do Control S, and it will automatically understand that key command to as a shortcut for saving, or you can click the save button up here. All right. So I've got this basic thing started now where I've got the I guess like the container, right, for everything that's going to go inside this header. Now I can see here I've got my image tag, so you can see how nicely it would be to already have all this ready and prepped, right? So I'm going to type img, because that's for an image tag, that's what it is, right? And then remember, an image tag is a self-closing tag, or it's actually referred to as an empty element, but as I've mentioned several times, I hate that word or that term, so I call it a self-closing tag. So img, and then you put a space, and you need the source. So I'm going to start to type SR, and then it starts to pop up for me, source equals, and then this is where I would go and find a photograph of myself. For right now, I'm just going to leave that blank. I'll go back and I'll put the picture in just a second. I want to go ahead and get my alt tag here. All right, and finally I'm going to close that like that. Now I can, inside of the alt, I can say that it's going to be a picture of me, so I'll put my name, and I can say Lee Cotner, I could say headshot or something like that, depending on what it's going to be. And right here is where I need to actually go and find that picture. Now here's the thing, if you don't have a picture of yourself online, like, you know, somewhere that is world visible, then this is where you're not going to be able to upload something to this particular page yet. Okay, so if you want to put some other picture in there as a placeholder for right now, you can do that, right? So you could come down here and go into assets, and let's go over here to photos, and let's just say we're looking for a person. Okay, and we'll see what it comes up with. And yeah, I don't know, lots of different things. All right, maybe this one's kind of interesting. I'll click on this one, and I'll say that I want the URL, and I want it to be for actually I just want, yeah, I want the URL because I've already typed in the entire image tag, so I'll say for small. I don't want the big version, and I can go close this now, get that out of the way, and go inside of my source, and I can right click and paste. Okay, and then you can see down here that it gives me a picture. All right, later you can go and replace this URL with an actual picture. It's actually, this is the URL, like I showed you in the other example, you know, in the tutorial where I showed you how to create a project, right? And so anyway, let's go ahead and just leave this as is right now. And you've got something that'll hold our place. And then so that's our header, and then I've got my IMG tag. And then if we look next, you see this over here is the next thing that we would have, which is an H1, where it says, hi, I'm so-and-so. So I'm going to just come down in my HTML, and I'm going to, I'm going to type H1 like this. And then I'll go ahead and close that tag. And then inside of the tag, in between the two different opening and closing tags, I would type, hi, I am or I'll just say I'm with a contraction, Lee Cotner. All right. And then the next thing you'll see is that we had a nav tag with an unordered list inside of it. All right, and that's going to be our navigation that jumps to the different parts of the page down below. And if you remember, okay, we talked about this before, we have all these different sections within our main uh, content area. We have article, article, we have another article, and so on and so on, another article. What it would be nice, we decided, was to have navigation at the top of the page that would allow us to jump to those different articles. And so because this first article was sort of an overview of ourselves, right, then we decided that we could give that an ID of overview. And that means that up here, if we have a link, we can jump down to that overview, right? And this should be a reiteration from the tutorial that we did before. All right, so let's go ahead and get started so that you can see this. And we're not going to go through this entire page together. I'm just kind of giving you a way that you can get started, and you're going to need to figure out the rest from here. So anyway, if I start with a nav tag, because that's what we've got, and I'll end that nav tag, all right, then we need to see what's going to go inside of it. So I'll bring that down here, and then you'll see what goes inside the nav tag, right, is an unordered list. Okay, so let's go there and let's go ahead and put our UL like that. And then inside of the UL, we're going to have some list items. Okay, and I didn't actually type LI here. Okay, so there is an assumption that you need to understand that each one of these things would be an LI tag or a list item. So let's go ahead and, even though I didn't explicitly say it, let's go ahead and put our opening and closing LI tag. And then inside of each one, you'll notice that the names, overview, hobbies, pro goals, etc., those are all going to have anchor tags wrapped around them. So what I'll do here is I'm going to type the word click, all right, and then we can change this word later. I'm going to select it, and if you remember, there's a shortcut in CodePen where you can do Shift Command A on a Mac, or on Windows it's Shift Control A. And I can enter the abbreviation for the tag that I want to wrap that with, and I want it to be an A tag. So I'll just type A and hit enter, and then what it did was it wrapped the word click with an opening A tag that has an href and then a closing A tag. Okay, that's pretty handy, so I didn't have to type all that. So A href equals, and then what we need to put here is it's going to be the ID that we're going to jump to. Well, if you want to see really quickly, a good way to understand what's going to happen is that just like up here, where in the header, right, if you look up here in this header, we gave it an ID of intro, right, and we had this little notation out here that the ID is going to be called intro. Well, down in each one of these articles, we're going to have IDs attached to each of those articles of like overview, hobbies. I just have the word pro for pro goals. I'm just going to keep it simple. I have an ID of personal and an ID of contact, right? And so the way that you would indicate that you're going to jump from this link down to, say, this article is over here in the HTML, you would type in the href, you would put a hashtag, and then you would say the name of the ID that it's going to jump to. And this is very, very important. You need to make sure that you don't put spaces in your tag or in your ID names. That won't work. You can use dashes and underscores if you want to have something that's 2 words. I would always make sure to capitalize or not capitalize, and so in my case I'm going to tell you don't capitalize. It just makes it a lot more, it just makes it easier to remember if you just have a habit of never capitalizing things in your code. Okay, all right, and so now that I've got that, I can actually, I'm going to copy this, right, this entire list item. I'm going to copy that into my clipboard, and I want to come over here and paste, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so that's 2, 3, 4, 5. And then now all I've got to do is I can come over here and I can say, all right, well, we've got hobbies, all right, overview, hobbies, pro goals, personal goals, and so on. All right, so let's just go ahead and where it says click, I'm going to double click the word click and highlight it, and I'll type overview. Okay, and then this word, the next one is hobbies, and this is the word that would be clicked on the page. down here it's going to be pro goals, and then the next one is personal goals. Right, and then this next one, the last one, is get in touch. Or you can say, you can call it whatever you want, like holla at me or I don't know, whatever. Okay, now we need to change the ID that all these other ones are going to jump to, right? You don't want all of these to jump to overview. So let's just scroll down and make sure that we are going to be consistent. So this one was actually lowercase hobbies, so we will type hobbies. All right, this one is, the next one is pro, so it's the word pro. And the next one after that I think is personal. Yep, personal. And then the last one is contact. So we'll just go personal and then we'll say contact here. Okay. All right. And so for instance, you'll see that we've got our beginning HTML set up for the header, right? If you want to take a peek real quick, we've got our header. And you see that it opens and closes, right? That's the entire header. I'm just collapsing it with that little button on the left, this little drop down button. And then inside of that, the first thing that we've got is this image tag. Okay, and right now it's just a random picture. I'm trying to highlight this and I'm having trouble. Okay, it's a random picture, but later we'll go back and we'll put the right image in there. If you want, you can use some other image to reference yourself, but I really like it whenever I can see what people look like. It helps me know who you are in the class. All right, especially in an online class, if this is an online class. All right, and so then the next thing is that we had our H1, that's like the introduction to the page, and then we've got our nav, and inside of our nav, you see that collapses, right? We've got our UL, you'll see that that collapses. And then in our list item, all right, you'll see that that collapses too, and it just, even though it's on one line, it shows you that there's content inside of that. All right, and then our A tag, okay, for each one of those things. And we don't have anything that it can actually jump to just yet. If I pull this up, we can take a look at how it looks so far. And so far, that's the way it ought to look. None of these links are actually going to work yet because I haven't built the structure for all of those things to go and jump down, all right? But that would be the next thing that you would do. So you would go ahead and create your main tag down here, right? So let's just do that real fast, right? So you would get that started. You would have your main tag. And then if you wanted, you could go ahead and just keep going all the way down, or you could just do like main and then footer, and then you could fill them in however you want to do it, right? And then it looks like we've got article, we've got how many? 5 articles, and each article you'll notice has a header with a heading inside of it. Okay, they don't all have the same kind of list, so we can always come back to that. But one of the things that you could do if you want to be really succinct and efficient is you could go ahead here and say that you want an article, and then you know that each one of those articles has an ID, so you could say ID equals, and let's just leave that blank for right now, and we can end the article. I want to show you this is a really good way of having something that is writing with efficiency. So you'll notice that each one of these things has an H2, each header has an H2 as its heading level, right? They're all the same. So I'm just going to go ahead and type in my H2 here, and we'll end it. I'm not going to type any words inside of it, right? We'll have to go figure that out or fill that stuff in later. And one thing I want to really warn you about not doing is I don't want you to copy and paste from this Word document into your code, because it will definitely pick up special formatting and special characters, and very likely it can mess up your stuff. So just type all of this stuff. Don't copy and paste anything thinking that you're going to save yourself some sort of time. I guarantee it's not going to help you. Just type it out. Okay, and then everything, each one of these articles, it has something different. Like this one starts with a paragraph, this starts with a list, right? So I'm just going to leave that so that we add that properly for each one. But what I can do is I can also go up here and let's do a comment. Let's say something like, if you wanted to comment for each one of these, you could put something like something section. Let's just put something. And then I'm going to put this, I'm going to highlight that, All right, so I highlighted that, and then I can do, as a shortcut, if you remember back, you can always come down here to this little shortcut button and look at your shortcuts. But I'm going to do a command /, or on Windows it's control /, so that I can comment this out. I'll just go ahead and do something like this so that it's really easy to see. In fact, let's go ahead and add a third one right there. Something section, all right? And so we'll change where it says something, we'll change that to be something else. All right, so let's go, and we're going to highlight this whole thing, copy that, and then we can come down here. All right, and then we can paste it. So we have 5 of these. And I think that's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. Okay, and so like this could be overview. Okay, right, section, and this could be overview. And then here, yeah, and then this doesn't actually say overview, it's who I am or something. All right, that's what I've got over here. So anyway, the next one is going to be called Hobbies. So we'll say Hobbies. And here it's in lowercase, remember. I don't care if you make your comments upper or lowercase. I just think it's easier to read in uppercase. But the ID needs to be consistent with whatever you put up in the anchor links up above. And so then the next one would be Pro Goals. But here, if you remember and look off to the right, our ID name is actually just it's just Pro. So you got to make sure that that matches what that link is up at the top of the page, right? And then the next one would be Personal Goals, and this is just called Personal. Oops. Make sure that you keep that lowercase. And then right over here, I think the last one is Contact, right? So we'll say Contact, and here it's Contact. Okay, and later, you know, you can come in here in the H2 and write Get in Touch or whatever it happens to be, Personal Goals, Pro Goals. Okay, but this is a way that you can kind of get started. And then, of course, if you know, you go back to your outline, you know, you'll go back up to this overview, and then, you know, after you fill in the H2, all right, you would come down below the header and you would type your P tag and so on and so on. Okay, I'm not going to do this whole thing with you. I want you to do the rest of it by yourself. And okay, let me know if you have any questions, and you'll go ahead and get that part of the assignment finished.